very rarely is anyone ever forcing you to do anything, is what my point is.
Right.
You are in control whether you like it or not. And it's easy to feel like you're not and that other people are dictating what you should be doing. But you can't just, but you should be aware that the thing you're doing is because of these other things that you want.
Hey, welcome back to the Burning Boat Show. This week's episode is sponsored by our patrons. You can head over to Patreon on the link down below to support us if you want. This week's episode was a good one. We actually had our producer, Robin, ask us a few questions about starting the company, etc. Robin, say hi.
Hello.
And enjoy the episode. We'll see you next week. Peace.
So this week we're trying something slightly different. We haven't prepared anything.
Yes.
Which normally turns into a very disjointed episode, but
not always. It's a bit of hit or miss, I would say.
Hit or miss.
You know?
Mostly
miss.
So we've asked our producer Robin to come up with a bunch of questions.
Yeah.
Actually, you asked him what exactly were the instructions? Was there an amount of questions?
Come from me. He said he had questions you wanted to ask.
Oh,
I did.
Why am I thinking it came from? Oh, you were asking him to do questions for something else.
For an insight. Yeah,
that's true.
Just doing all the work for you.
Yeah. And if you guys don't recognize the space, it's because I renovated the office a little bit, moved a lot of stuff around, and in the course of like 2.5 hours, I pretty much just moved everything a full 360 back into its original spot, but the table is slightly shifted over from the wall. Pretty epic.
But no one will be able to see that from the angles that they're looking at.
No, but it feels really good. Right, Robin?
Very good.
Yeah.
I'm just glad that the table's still there.
It's just a very hard room. It's such a skinny office that it's a very difficult room to make things fit and to make things work.
There's not a lot of variety as to how things go.
I was just trying to try things
either
out.
It looks okay or good,
Yeah.
or like definitely doesn't work.
Yeah.
There's not like a bunch of things you can have it this way and you can have it this way. Remember when we wanted to have the couch in the middle?
Yeah.
Are you glad we didn't do that?
No, I was telling Robin, I think this is pretty much the only way to set it up.
That's what I mean by it's like there's one way.
There's pretty much one way.
Not a lot of choice.
Yeah. But we did move the table 2 feet to the right, and to me,
It works.
it's a life-changing experience.
It's good. Well,
too much.
No one can fucking
All right,
see the
move
office.
on. Not interesting.
This is the part that normally is a miss.
Oh, well, fuck you too. Robin?
Let's get some questions going.
Yeah.
So we have no idea what these are about, or what the level of seriousness they're going to be, or if they're going to be about something specific.
We know nothing.
Let's go.
They're good questions.
Here we
Yeah.
go.
Good, in my opinion.
Hit us.
How many are
You'll
there?
see. Technically 5, but there are
Okay.
some additional
Okay, that's
questions.
good. Interesting.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
Okay.
So, all right.
All right.
Let's kick it off with question number 1. Simple one. What was it like starting a business?
The question was, what was it like starting a business? What was it like starting a business? I think at the beginning it's very, not embarrassing, but it's that thing you have to tell people that you're going to do it. You know, like, hey, me and Matt are starting a company, but you have nothing. You know,
But you feel
it's
like you
just
have a lot for some reason.
I guess.
The first thing I thought of when you asked the question just now was how it really feels like there's this like physical thing almost that happens when you say you're going to start a business. Like it's like this like it's a building that it's like it's not such a, in hindsight it feels like a lot more of an abstract concept, like, all right, let's try and start a business and see what happens. Whereas when it's happening, it feels like today we're starting the business,
Right.
and now it's a business,
Right.
And like from one day to the next, there's no business to business, except
Right.
nothing really changed other than that you said that you were going to do that.
To me, I felt like a kid putting on, like a small kid putting on a tie and a suit and pretending to start doing business things, because I didn't even know what you do at the, it's like, okay, we have all these ideas.
Yeah.
You're trying to make things happen.
Yeah.
But you're also doing things like, do we need business cards? Do we need, let me research? You're doing like a weird combination of research and trying to get things started. You also don't have anything. There's nothing to show for what, I don't know. For me, it felt very like strange.
Also in the moment, or is it more in hindsight? Because I feel like
I think I was I was still very excited in the moment,
yeah.
right? It's just a thing. It's like when you first start a movie and you go, "Hey, I'm going to make this movie,"
yeah,
but you have nothing to show for it. You're just a little bit like, people are like,
right,
which is fine. It doesn't take away from what I think about it.
Yeah.
But it's just this like, oh yeah, okay, cool. You're going to start a company with Mads.
in the moment it feels so like tangible and so
That's
like
interesting.
this is happening and it's a thing and it's
Yeah.
real,
Yeah.
even though there's nothing to show for it. It's all just ideas.
Yeah. Well,
Nothing
even
actually there.
it's like the question of at what point did we own a company?
I mean, to me, I look at the day that you moved here as the day that it started, because from that day on, that was 100% the
Yeah.
only thing we were doing.
Yeah.
There was an actual date closer to Christmas that year when we actually legally registered as a company.
Right. But it's sort of like, for me, I think it was a little bit more, I mean, I agree that was a huge stepping stone,
Which part?
the moving here and everything and starting on that. But I think it was some weird transition where it's like at where we got paid, it sort of legitimized it for me.
Became legitimate, but I feel like to me it still started then.
Yeah, I would say, I guess it
Because
started.
we even, like, for months before that, were coming up with ideas for what our strategy should be,
Right.
planning out when you were going to move here, what
Right.
the things we're going to focus on were going to be, so that when you moved here, we had, all right, we're going to start a YouTube channel. We've
Right.
already started the podcast.
Right.
We're going to have as many clients or as many contacts that we're going to reach out to and say we're going to work for free.
Yeah.
So we had, like, everything planned out as well as we could.
Yeah.
And then that was the day when, all right, now it's for real. We're doing it.
Yeah.
It's no longer just talking about it.
But my point is, what's the difference between that and me starting Taylor Films?
That you decided to do it.
But I also decided to start like a separate company. You know, when you're younger and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm gonna make these business cards and like, oh, it's Taylor Films Productions, right? But you haven't done anything.
Mads Productions right here.
And you're
baby.
not doing anything, right?
To me, I think it's real once you commit to it, honestly. And it only becomes, it was real to me when I started Mads Productions. Even though I wasn't getting paid, I wasn't working.
Right.
But that's all I was doing,
Right.
was doing that.
Right.
And it only becomes, I guess, real to other people once certain other things also happen, like getting paid or
Yeah, okay.
actually
Yeah,
legally
yeah.
registering so that someone else can look
That's
you
what I
up
meant,
in
yeah.
the database of Danish companies. But to me, there's a big part of it that is just the decision to make, this is now going to be what I focus all my time on. And that's what makes it real.
Interesting. It took me a while. I think at the beginning I wouldn't go, if somebody said, what do you do? Especially when I was in Copenhagen. I wouldn't go, oh, I run a company.
Well, what would you say then?
At the beginning, probably like, we're trying to start a company, or we make videos, or, more in that lane. And I think I've recently noticed it's fully switched into like, yeah, we would run a small production house.
Yeah. But even like, there's that weird transition of like having to, what's that term? Fake it until you make it.
Yeah.
Where you are meeting up with clients or potential clients.
Yeah.
At a point when they could be your first client, and you're kind of saying, oh, we run a small production company.
Right. It's like the thing when you have to do your first invoice. You just don't do 001.
No.
You just go like
007. Start
a
at
couple
7.
pass. It just
Yeah.
it feels like, oh yeah, we've done a couple of these.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good answers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think about that, Robin?
About what?
I don't know.
I'd say let's move on to the next questions.
Alrighty then.
Because they get slightly more juicy as they
Ooh.
go on. So, question number 2 is whether or how your vision for the company has changed / developed.
I would say long term, I don't think anything has changed.
Yeah, me either.
I think we want to make feature films. That's the goal.
I think my perspective has changed about how long something like that takes.
Yeah.
How long it takes to get to the, like, if there's even such a thing as like an end vision, or like I definitely feel like when we were just starting out, I had like a vision of one day we'll be in a space, a burning boat space with multiple
In
people.
space.
In space. The space will be in space. No, we would have like a physical building that is a burning boat space where multiple people are there, and it's like an atmosphere, and people are working on different things, and there's so many different projects going on all at the same time. And it's more of like a feeling of what it feels like to show up to work that day, rather than like these are the kinds of things we're specifically working on. I don't think that has changed, but I'd say that my expectations of how quickly things like that develop and evolve has changed quite a bit.
As in, you think it's going to take longer or shorter?
Longer.
Okay.
Or at least it's not. I just thought more about everything up until then.
Right.
It's not that I don't think I would have said like 2 years ago that that's something that would happen within 2 years or something.
Yeah.
So maybe it's not that my perspective of how long it takes has changed. I've just started thinking a lot more about, well, there's all this time leading up to that moment. What's that going to be like? So I guess I've spent just more time thinking about the more current things that would be happening.
Yeah. I have a feeling it will happen from one day to the next, and it will be quite
sudden.
Yeah. And I wouldn't expect it to take that long. I'm thinking like less than 5 years. I think our direction has been sort of like you have that final goal, then you start working on things which are not the final goal, and you kind of, your boat kind of veers in the wrong direction. You're intentionally going in the wrong direction, but you're still moving towards the ultimate goal, right? And then sometimes we have to be like, this is not what we want to be doing. Even though it's exciting, it's like you can get wrapped up in it a little bit, but then you can also kind of imagine yourself, and you're like, this isn't where I want to end up.
Yeah.
So I almost don't want to go too far in this field, because I feel like I could get stuck there or become reliant on, you know, what that could provide. So I think there's a constant like trying to obviously do the things that make us money, but always be like, let's not forget.
Where does it go?
Right.
And if you can answer the question in a way that, well, this could lead to this, which could lead us to the thing that we're looking for, then there's a lot of reason to spend some time on that. But like a lot of the time, it's like it would get us a significant amount of money.
Yeah.
But then the next thing after that is just more of the same, and so it becomes very difficult.
Everything has to be, the risks have to be
decide what to do.
Yeah, exactly. We're mainly talking about like commercial work.
Yeah.
Which we enjoy. It's just, again, it's like, so we make a commercial for Adidas or something. If we made more than one, I would be like, you know, you should be able to use that momentum to like do something else, even if it's just make a short film and spend a bunch of money on that and it doesn't get us anywhere. At least it's, you know, I think those are the risks that would be worth taking to try to force us in the right direction.
Yeah, I think we're quite clear on the idea that we need to keep taking the same amount of risks as when we started. Because when we started, we didn't have anything. So it felt like everything was kind of like a risk.
Yeah.
I gotta risk working for free and it not turning into anything because this is the only thing we have to go off of right now.
Yeah.
It's easy to start just doing the things that are there and that are easy to keep doing.
Yeah. I mean, right now it's because of Corona and stuff. We don't have that many like choices to begin with, but
this is true.
We're kind of just.
But it still informs like what to focus on even now. Like where are we spending a bunch of time networking within the contacts we've established
right.
through commercial work here in Copenhagen, or are we focused on film and like, yeah, that's what we're focused on.
Yeah.
So it still tells us what to focus on.
Yeah.
Even though there's not a hard decision to be made.
Yeah.
Has it changed though? Is there any part of the? You said you had a vision. I mean, we've talked about in one of the early podcasts like what a vision would be.
Of Burning Boat?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What part of it has changed? Is there anything that you thought you wanted to do, or that you would really be into, or that would be a really big, important part of Burning Boat that's not as important anymore, maybe?
I think when we first started, or maybe towards the end of last year, I was definitely not 100% convinced of like, oh, we're staying in Denmark, right? There had been some questions of like Germany at some point, or like, could it be a global company, as in could we have offices in multiple spaces and stuff? And I think in the last couple of months, it's really, you know, having the office and everything makes it much more real and makes me feel like I have a place here and stuff. And it's definitely become a lot more like, yeah, I would be totally fine with having a company.
That's interesting.
You know, just here.
Right.
Not to say like I wouldn't not want it somewhere else if you were like, hey, what if we
branched out?
Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't be like, no. But the need for that has definitely subsided a little bit.
How would that even work to,
I think,
branch out to a different place?
The way it always worked in my head was that, okay, we're both working on feature films, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say we are making, you know, the perfect situation, we're making like 2 every 2 years or something.
2 every 2 years?
Or maybe 2 every 3 years, yeah.
Yeah.
And that a lot of it, in my head, I was thinking like, yeah, a lot of it could be done remotely until we need to go to production and post-production, which is a huge part of it. It's just research, which is also like, I can't really help you with your research. You can't really help me with mine. I mean, we can have Skype calls and like talk about ideas and stuff. So that kind of worked in my head. But now I just feel like, I don't know, there's something just became a little bit more real here for some reason. Oh, and the feeling of like, yeah, we've built something, and it would be like, you know, if we moved now, it's just like, it wouldn't, we could still do it, but it would be a lot of work of like, you know, we do have some connections here. We do have some, we know how it works here. We have put a lot of time into like the company in Denmark. Right.
But they're all commercial connections.
Yeah.
In Denmark.
That's true. There could definitely be a limitation here. We know we're getting into it right now.
Yeah.
I think that's something that could come up if it was like impossible for us to get funding. That's something that would make me go,
that'll be
this is not going to work for me.
Interesting thing to happen next.
Yeah.
Whether or not we get funding for making a movie from the different grants that are provided within Denmark.
Exactly. Or there might be something that it's like, you have a better chance of getting funding because you're Danish. That would be a reason for me to go, you know what, I need to be either in Germany or somewhere where I can get funding as well.
You said Germany as something that had been brought up. I don't remember that.
You and Phoebe once talked about like, Germany? You guys had talked about it. No.
Definitely not.
Maybe I dreamt it.
Nah, I've already lived in Germany. Somewhere else would be more exciting.
On a boat?
On a boat? Oh, yeah.
You guys talked about a boat. On a boat. A catamaran.
Yeah, that's more like, not right now.
What are you guys doing? We're filming fish.
Huh.
You know, I think it's something I'm still thinking about, but it's like I said, it's definitely something I think about a lot less. I think before I kind of had to justify like, oh, at some point in 5 years or something, I would like to be back in America or in Germany or somewhere, you know.
That's interesting. I remember you talked not a lot about it, but you'd often say things like, oh, I feel the urge to move, or like,
yeah, I get like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you don't feel that as much now.
I think I've kind of gotten over the hump, and I've worked a lot on building social ties here and stuff, and that's obviously made it a lot more like, and the apartment, and that I can have people over. I'm starting to build a community, right? And I feel like I know how much work it takes to build that community. Like I did the same in LA. Like I finally started building a community, and then I was like, peace out. Because in your head, you kind of lose, what's it called? When you're not like grateful for something, because you take it for granted a little bit. Like you have it, and then you're in it, and you just go, oh yeah, of course I have that. And then I feel like I've moved so many times now that I realize, you know, it does take me a solid, I'm sure other people are a lot better at it, but it takes me like a solid 2 years to like find my way into, you know.
Well, you also had that like full year of just like a tough situation where it was hard to.
I think that I also think it's really isolating to start a company. You know, you're not around anybody. The people we're talking to are other business owners who tend to be a lot older than us, just on average.
Yeah.
We're working long hours. You know, on weekends, it's like, also we don't have money.
Yeah.
So I'm not like, oh, let me go do something social. Like something social that I can afford is like go to the beach and be a creep and be like, hey guys, can I also lay down here?
That's very true. I mean, I wouldn't know. I don't have a social group really.
Yeah.
Except for right here.
Yeah. Which also, I would say also made it hard that you guys didn't have like a
it's like
group that I could go like, oh, here's these other people, you know.
Group.
No.
So you're talking about community and the idea of moving.
Yeah.
That leads quite nicely into the next question, which is, how do you think that Burning Boat fits within the community as a whole, but also filmmaking specifically? And how would you want the company and the image of Burning Boat to fit within the community as a whole?
The community as in like Denmark?
What's
Copenhagen?
The community? Define
community. Just, it can be Denmark, it can be the world community, community of filmmaking, community of art.
I think we're not part of the community here. I mean, I think we are, but I don't think we're part of the like, we don't have connections with other production houses, or we haven't collaborated with anybody.
We're definitely, that's what I meant by like, we're in Denmark, but it feels like we could be anywhere, to be honest.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Especially with the stuff we're working on right now. I mean, we've been working with people living in LA for the last
that's true.
couple of months. We've had zero interaction with anyone in our own country and even continent.
Yeah.
It's all been remote. So in that sense, we're like a little bubble. We're not a community. We're not part of the community here.
No, we're not really. No. But we are part of a community. I would call it like our own community, which is just the people we've worked with.
Yeah, but we don't really interact with them unless we're working with them.
Yeah, that's true.
And we haven't been working with anyone for a while now because of all the different things that have been happening. So right now, I'd say it feels very much like we're just here by ourselves. It sounds, I mean, I'm making that sound like a negative. I actually look at it as a positive, because it feels like we can just kind of like, we're not reliant on this place.
Yeah.
How do you then want Burning Boat to fit into a community?
I think I would like more connections with just the film industry. you know, if we had Lars von Trier in our Rolodex, I'd be pretty happy about that.
Yeah, definitely the film making community, and just knowing more people to like work with, or to, another word for work with. Just that when we did the Chic Discomfort commercial, having other people provide work that we couldn't have done ourselves,
right,
part of a project that we were directing, was very rewarding, in my opinion. So rewarding, in fact, that a big part of the documentary now is involving other creative people to work on it.
Yeah.
So I definitely want to be more involved with other creative people.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a big vision, a way to see Burning Boat as like a part of other people's work as well, which we are. I mean, with now with Yes Theory, we're
I think it's all coming together. There's nothing negative here. It's just, you know, what would be the dream, I guess, you know. I think finding some mentors out here would be cool. You know, I do feel like there's nobody kind of above us at the moment who we'd go like, hey, can you watch this and tell us what you think? That we wouldn't be like, no, we think we know best.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I think that would be cool. But I also think it will come. You know, we just have to do the right things, and there's no point in going now, I think, and going like, oh, look at, you know. I think it's a couple more steps before we kind of hit that point. Invite old Lars out to a coffee.
I think another part of community that springs to mind is, I think, something that we're trying to do now is to also build our own little community of people who are interested in specifically what we do.
Yeah.
And to try and see what can come of that kind of interaction with people through social media.
Yeah. I think that, even just the office, now that Robin's here, it definitely feels something about 3 people. You know, when Daria is here too, it does give it a community feeling. I mean, us 2 is like, I don't know if you can call 2 people a community.
No.
It's a pretty sad community. Yeah. There's sort of definitely a feeling of a certain, I don't know, a certain way the office is, a certain way we run things as a business. It all just kind of feels a little bit fuller, a little more flavorful.
Yeah.
Nothing against you, obviously.
No. I really like the feeling of putting out content on social media and knowing that people are looking at it and also wanting to write something back because they're interested in it.
Yeah.
They want to know more about it, or they have their own opinion about something within it. It's very rewarding to like be providing some kind of content in that way that is our own style.
Yeah.
Where we can really experiment with different kinds of content. I don't know. I feel like a vision would be to have a significant community online, something where we can actually like use it for something. I don't know what.
Yeah.
But I feel like that would be. It's something that recently has been, just because Robin is here and we're working on social media, has been like, well, what is all this leading to? What's the like, where's this going? Where could it go? Something where you can like, I don't know. I feel like it's the answer isn't there yet, but I feel like something one day they'll be like, oh, we can like send this out to all these people.
Right.
They're kind of starting to get into it a little bit with the documentary, you know?
Yeah.
Being able to ask Yes Theory's community to, guys, send in your own experiences.
Yeah.
Like that's such a amazing thing to be able to do that not a lot of people can do.
Yeah.
To get such a wide variety of people's thoughts on something.
Mm-hmm.
Like creative input as well. I feel like that's something interesting. More of that in the future.
Yeah. Yeah. Next question.
Next question is, what's the most valuable thing you've taken from starting a business, or the most valuable lesson you've learned in the past 3 years or so? It doesn't have to be specifically with the business. It can be surrounding it somewhat.
I mean, something immediately springs to mind. I just want to make sure that it's actually the most
just
valuable.
say it.
I think it is how important it is to make your content in some way your own content, and kind of a byproduct of that is to make it stand out from what already exists out there. It's so often weirdly tempting to fall into a more, I don't like the word generic because that's never what I'm thinking in the moment. It's always just more of something that's like, I know that this works and I've seen someone else do it, so let's do the same thing.
Less risky.
Yeah, definitely that. And it's just always better, not always in the short term, but always better in the long term, to make it different and to make it your own, because it makes you have something that other people want because they can only get it from you.
Right.
And even if you have to like put out content that's not necessarily as good because you were experimenting and doing something that you haven't done before, and so you're also not able to do it as quickly or as good, someone will see that and see that that's something different than what already is out there.
Right.
I can't think of an example of where we did something that was like, oh, well, let's, we're making a commercial for a restaurant, but let's not just show beautiful food and happy smiling people.
We want to get a reaction out of
Let's
people.
do something that's different.
Yeah.
Literally, often it's just for the sake of...
Yeah, I don't get this whole like, he just did it to be different.
No.
It's like, yeah. I mean, we're not wedging it in there. There's still a purpose for it.
Yeah.
But the purpose can be so many different things. I mean, it's not always like a story purpose or like a... Yeah, it might literally be, hey, we think it's an interesting strategy for the restaurant to try to do this.
It makes you stand out.
Yeah, exactly. I think a lot of times, I think almost every cut we do, it's probably we submit the cut and then it will be like, hey, can you guys make this a little bit less
different,
dark, or like, I remember we did a hot air balloon commercial and they told us like, it feels like the hot air balloon is going to crash the entire time during the video.
It sounds like it's
okay, we got that.
Catastrophe is about to happen. And we're like, that's kind of true.
Yeah. Which is just the
But
style
at least it
we
made
like.
you
And
feel
it's,
something.
Yeah, it's exactly. It's the wrong video to do it in, but like that's an example of us trying something, and we're totally willing to go, yeah, you're right. That's not the right. We get why you wouldn't want that. We'll change that.
And that's a perfect example of, I think in the moment we're just trying to do something that also is stimulating for us to work on, and now it's transitioned into being more. There's a little bit more thought behind the strategy. I'm at least thinking a lot more about what someone else is going to think when they see it.
Yeah.
Which is a little bit like not the best if you're trying to make the client as happy as possible, because that's not really my goal.
No, it's more the
quite
audience.
often. It's like, how can I get the next thing that I want, the next person that I want to work with, to see that and think, ooh, that's interesting.
Oh, I see. Right.
So it's not about how can we make the hot air balloon video really appeal to the audience that the hot air balloon company is looking to attract.
Right.
It's how can I get, this filmmaker who's looking for an editor to see that and want us to work on his project. That's a lot more in alignment with that. So it's like, just kind of like...
I think it's a balance. I think we should say the hot air balloon we did for free.
Yeah.
You know, so there's definitely an element, I think, where we have a little bit of, we can just do whatever we want because it's like you're not losing out on anything. We're spending all the money doing this. And then there's some projects, you know, where I think we do also like, we'll edit something the way we want it, and the client will ask for something else. And we've started saying, well, we'll just put our version up on our website because, again, that's catering towards where we want to go. And their version is just, I get why they want that, but it's also not something that I like want on our reel. So, you know, something as small as like a shitty music track or something, it's just like, ugh.
Yeah.
Really changes the mood.
But it's an interesting approach that I'm only just really thinking about now. That it's not always just like, how can we make the client the most happy, which I kind of thought it was for a long time.
I think it depends. I think if we wanted to work with the client again,
right,
we'd be much more likely to go, oh yeah, we want, you know. Or
when do we ever think that? When is our priority ever to, oh, we really want to work with this client again?
I think like the project we're working on now, I might have to cut that out. I think would be an example of, you know,
okay,
we're really
we definitely want to work with that client again.
Yeah.
But are we still not more interested in being able to show that work?
Yeah.
For our own next project?
But if it was just up to us, I think we would cut it differently.
True. Yeah, true.
Yeah. But we see the benefit in. Also, we're also not assholes. We're just trying to, it's like to get as close to the thing that we want to be able to have our reel match what we want to do.
At the end, we should say at the end of the day, if someone says, I want this different,
right,
and says exactly what they want different, we'll change it.
Exactly. We're not like,
but if it's
no, sorry.
But if it's like up in the air and it's like, I don't know about this.
Yeah.
Like, we'll spend some time trying to convince them.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. What was the question again?
The question was the most valuable thing you've taken or learned.
I think it's that, to me, to really like almost above everything, always focus on that, because that always leads to something.
Yeah.
Even if it's just developing a new skill yourself.
Yeah.
And experimenting.
Yeah.
And developing. But often it leads to a lot more than just that.
Yeah.
It leads to someone seeing it, which leads to them wanting a video.
Yeah. I think mine would be a little bit off of that, in that most valuable thing I've learned, I think, is like the importance of doing what you want to do in life and not compromising a lot on that. You know?
Yeah.
I think you have to compromise to get to the point where you want to get. I think the more we do this with the company, the more, I mean, everything's in our control, from when we want to start working to how we work on things to how the company is set up to where we're living to very few things that are out of our control. And I think it's satisfying to see how much better like of a life I can create for myself given that control. You know, and not feeling like, and it's very much of like I'm you know, I know not everybody can do it, but I also could see us falling into like, oh, we have to do this thing, or we have, you know, and constantly saying we don't have to do shit.
We don't have to do any. There's nothing that we are being forced to do.
There's only a financial, thing which you could say would control us a little bit, but it's also up to us to figure out how we want to bring that money in. Right? There's so many different ways to do it. I keep thinking, like Robin, you said once, like, oh, you're so lucky to be living in the office and so close to the gym, and you don't have to go a lot of places. And then I also think like, I am very lucky and grateful, but I also like created it. Like we did this. It didn't like fall into our lap or something, you know? It's very like a conscious thing. And when it all lines up, it's just like very satisfying, and is like, I almost think you know, I don't want to tell other people how to live their life, but
No, it's your insight. I feel the same. I think more and more I'm realizing how just having the mindset of I am choosing to do all these things.
yeah,
Even when I'm choosing something that I'm not super pumped about, I'm choosing it because it'll lead to this.
right,
Or it could.
right.
And so everything's a choice.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's also important to make those decisions and to like, yeah, you made the choice. Like,
it's the difference between, you know, having a client and they give you some ideas and you go, fuck, I hate those ideas, but we got to do them.
to write some new
As
ideas.
opposed to like, exactly what we'll do is like write 3 or 4 ideas that we want to do. And 9 out of 10 times, 10 out of 10 times, they go,
never has it ever happened.
awesome, let's do that.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the day, you know, someone can go, but I had to do that project that way.
Yeah.
And it's like, did you?
You did not have to do anything.
I'm sure there's situations where that would be, you know, I don't want to go like everybody's situation, but for us, it's really been like, no, we want to do this. And we think it will help you in these ways.
Mm-hmm.
You know, really lining things up to like, what do you want to do? Because also, I mean, at the end of the day, if we're excited about it, they're going to get a lot better product.
Yeah. And who doesn't want to, I mean, it's like human nature to want to, someone's working on something for you. You want them to want to do it as well.
Yeah.
So you're a lot more like,
And like passion is contagious. You know,
It
if
is.
you come in with an idea that you're like, I really think
this
is
could be really
they'd
interesting.
Be like, yeah,
Let's do that.
let's try that.
Yeah.
Doesn't always work, but you know, again, at least at the end of the day, you've done something that you feel like was out of your. That's what was so unsatisfying. I used to work in a production house in LA, and I felt like the most unsatisfying thing was like there was a credit on TV at the end of the episode, but I didn't feel like I had added anything.
Like anyone else could have done that or what?
Yeah, basically. You know, there were some creative roles, but I wasn't necessarily. You'd make like small decisions. I could say like, oh, well, like cut to this thing or this small little story, but it didn't feel like I had any control over.
Yeah.
I wouldn't take ownership over it at the end of the day. I would just go, yeah, that was somebody's project. It just leaves you kind of feeling like, meh. Me personally, some people on the team were like, I love it. I love working here.
Yeah. I do feel like getting into like telling other people what and what not to do, but I definitely get.
Listen up.
I feel annoyed when I hear people say, "Oh, I had to do that," or "I have to do this," or "I really don't want to do this." And part of me almost like to a very far, like even if it really does seem like you have to do this, you still don't. There's still, you can keep going back to, well, you want this, and so you're doing it because you want that. You don't have to do it, but you want the thing that you think you're going to get out of doing it. I feel like so often I hear people say that they don't want to be doing this thing. And it's like, I'll say, well, so don't. And people get like offended by it. And I think it's actually a big like misunderstanding. I'm trying to like point out that the reason why you feel like you have to do it is because you really want this other thing that you'll get by doing it.
Which is what, like security or?
Often.
Okay. I think there's definitely situations where it's very difficult. But you could look at somebody's
degree of difficulty for sure.
Yeah, changes,
Massive.
right? Some people would have a lot harder time to do what we're doing. Some people.
But that also means that you really want the thing that you're willing to do the difficult thing for.
Right.
And I think you should be clear on the fact that you're doing it because of that.
Yeah.
Not because you have to. No one is forcing you unless you're like, very rarely is anyone ever forcing you to do anything, is what my point is.
Right.
You are in control whether you like it or not, is kind of what I'm saying.
Right.
And it's easy to feel like you're not and that other people are dictating what you should be doing. But you can't but you should be aware that the thing you're doing is because of these other things that you want. So if there's something wrong with the things, if day after day you're doing something you don't want to be doing, maybe you should consider how badly you want the things that that thing is giving you.
Yeah.
And if it feels like such a big sacrifice and like not worth it, then maybe you don't want those things as much as you think you do, maybe.
Yeah.
It just feels very like...
It's a hard thing to...
It feels very hopeless to talk about things you're doing in your life as if someone else is telling you to do them or is making you do them. And I just don't see how that can be a beneficial way of thinking.
Yeah.
I think being aware that you're in control.
Yeah.
Is only a good thing. And it can allow you to become
but it's
more
something somebody has to
with the thing you're doing or to change it.
Yes. I do think it's something somebody has to come to on their own. You know, I do think I don't think I would take that well, for example, if somebody told me that.
It doesn't really matter at the end of the day whether or not it's how you would take it. I mean, it's either you really are being forced to do something and it's an abusive situation and there's something really wrong.
Yeah.
And then you saying that you can get help and someone can maybe hopefully help you out of it.
Yeah.
Or it's not true and you're saying that maybe to make yourself feel better because you don't know what to do, which is something that takes a long time to realize. And maybe by having that thought, you can start to think about what it all means.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wouldn't say it's necessarily a nice thing to be told. I don't know if that's the point either.
No, I just think there could be situations where it would feel like, so it could just take somebody very long to, if you say, oh, it's only what you want, and they're going, well, what I want is simply to survive, and also on the side, I'm trying to do this thing, but I have no education, I grew up with this background, these limitations that I wouldn't say makes it impossible, but certainly makes it very difficult. You know, I could see if somebody says, it's just because you want to work at a fast food restaurant or whatever.
No.
You know, it would just sound a little bit like, to me, it would depend on what the person is doing, right? I always felt like if I was at a company and somebody was like, oh, I've worked here for 6 years, but I'm trying to, and I'd be like, why the fuck have you been in the same position for 6 years then? That's strange. That doesn't sound like that's really what you want. You want the...
No.
Or if you're not saving money, like you can easily save money here. So I feel like case to case.
That's kind of the point I'm making. It's not that you want to do the thing. It's because you want this other thing. You're trying to make money so that you can save up, so you can go to this other thing. So stop complaining about the fact that you have to do this. No, you're choosing to do that.
Right, but they might have to do that. Even I'm saying they could be saving up money to make a film. And be in a shitty situation, right? But at least they would go, oh, I have a purpose here.
Exactly.
And I would go, this guy's really trying,
it.
right? But they could still go, this job sucks.
Yeah, I mean, here you can complain every once in a while, but to have this like baseline mindset, that, oh, I have to do this every day, like I have to. No, you don't.
Yeah.
But you're right. A lot of people don't like to hear that. Because it puts the responsibility on them, and suddenly it's their, if you can say, fault for not being happy.
Right.
It's like it is your choice.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that there's so many reasons why it's difficult, and that's a whole nother topic. I think the thing that is unfortunate is when I don't think there's anything wrong with talking about how difficult something is and why some things are a struggle.
Yeah.
I think it becomes a problem when then, all right, well, let's talk about how to make it less of that thing.
Right.
Often by changing other parts of your life, then it's like, no, I don't really. Right. I don't really want to do anything about it.
Yeah, that would be a situation.
It's like, okay, well then stop complaining.
Yeah.
You know, if it's like, I really want something different for myself. I just don't feel that happy with what I'm doing as much as I'd like to be.
Yeah.
Great. Let's talk about how you can change that.
Yes.
Because there's so many things that you can change.
Right.
And it's all up to you. It's no one else's fault.
Yes.
So it's not really that people, like, I don't have any issue with people talking about difficulties and things like that, as long as, you know, you're willing to want to, like, do something about it. Then let's talk about it more.
I agree. Talking about it is good. I would say maybe, like, the whole choice thing, maybe there's different degrees of choice. Like, a choice could come very easily to somebody given their situation, and a choice could come very much more difficult to somebody depending on their situation. I would say for me it was relatively easy. I don't want to, like, belittle the choice. It's still a difficult decision to make, but I could see somebody having a much harder time, and then I feel like they would just want to be heard that it's a difficult choice. But if you see them making the effort, it's like that's all that matters, right? As opposed to somebody, like you said, if somebody's
and that would happen,
like, oh, right? I could never do it. It's like, then I would go, that's probably the wrong mindset. You know, it would be a much more difficult choice for you than for me, but it's still possible. I mean, to think that anything would be impossible, I think would be a little bit sad.
But let's just talk about that real quick, because that's what you're kind of highlighting is a little bit the reaction that I think most people have when something like what I just said gets talked about, which is it's your choice, kind of, period.
Right.
The response is often, but, and then let's talk about the degree of difficulty. I'm just trying to point out that it is your choice.
Yeah, yeah.
Why do you think that it's often met with a little bit of resistance, even though it sounds like you agree and most people agree with that statement?
Yeah, yeah.
There's always, like, a little bit of, like, but
I think because people want to feel like you understand their situation, maybe, and that's sort of a blanket term that goes, listen, I get what you're saying. It's your choice. It makes it sound almost oversimplified, maybe, to that person. I'm not entirely sure.
I think that's kind
of the whole, like, being heard thing.
I think that's the point.
Yeah.
Is to try to bring it down to the most simple kind of statement you can make about the situation. That regardless of how difficult it is ultimately still your choice.
Yeah. But it's just in general. I mean, I think people want to see someone who is similar to themselves, who has made that choice. They would probably take it much better from that person. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Somebody that they feel like understands their life and their problems, who had the same life and problems, who made this choice, whatever this abstract choice is, and says, you can do it. I think to them they would go, yeah, because you get it, right? And there's so many different life situations and everything that it's just a probability that if I tell people, hey, it's your choice, one of them is gonna go, well, this guy doesn't fucking know my situation.
But it's still true.
Why should I care? Yeah, it's still true, but, like, why should I care what he has to say ultimately, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously true.
But it's not a bad, you know.
But it
because there is that person who will relate to you, and if you say it, then, you know, even if just one person goes, yeah, then it's probably worth it.
I think there's just there's a finite amount of sympathy that is healthy. Sorry, finite means limited, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think there's an abundance of it. I think that there's room for taking time to understand what the person is experiencing. And I'd say I would only be talking like this to people who I would say I know quite well.
Yeah.
And know what their
life
experience is. And that once you've spent the time talking about, you know, the difficulties of it, then let's transition into talking about what to do about it. And that requires you to do the thing.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
And that's the part that people don't want to talk about.
I see.
That's why we spend so much time talking about, well, you don't know what my life is, and you don't know how difficult it is. You're right. I don't know. I don't know what your life is like.
Yeah.
I'm not you. I just know that you're the only one who could do anything about it.
Yeah.
And that's hard to hear because it puts the responsibility on you. And that means that no one's going to come to rescue you, and no one's going to come and do it for you, which means there's a lot of hard work ahead of you. And that's, it gets met with resistance. It's like, that makes sense. I just don't see any other way.
Any other way?
For me to just keep agreeing with the difficulties of that specific person. If that's what they want to keep talking about, then I'm not interested in continuing to talk about it with you.
Okay.
And let's talk about something else, because it doesn't seem like you want to do anything about it.
Yeah.
And that's I'm actually fine with that.
But if the way you're asking, let's just say, if the way you're asking the question is giving a negative response, wouldn't that be a little bit counterproductive? Maybe there's a different way to approach the same topic from a slightly different angle that doesn't make people feel defensive.
I think it's up to the person. I mean, I wouldn't go into a situation and be immediately accusing someone of not doing anything about their life situation. I think I'm capable of empathizing with someone and talking about it, and that there's a very clear point of transition where it suddenly gets kind of revealed about, like, well, what is the person's intention? Are they willing to like do something about it?
Yeah.
And that's kind of a hard thing to then either you move backwards into just talking about the problems again, or you move forward, which means addressing your own actions.
Right.
And that becomes like, yeah, either you don't want to do it or you do want to do it.
Okay, so the final question is a choice of two.
Ooh.
The first one being what job that you've done so far you enjoyed the most individually. And the other question is, last week you spoke about owning a company and working as two people and having to make a decision or come to an agreement as two people. Sort of leading off from that, the question would be, what is it that you appreciate most about having the other person as a business partner?
Ugh.
Bit of positivity.
What was the first one again?
We can answer both of those. My favorite commercial, my favorite
film
we've worked on so far was the Seek Discomfort commercial, because that's the only project where we've had 100% freedom to do whatever we wanted to do. It was the most challenging. There were so many limitations, which led to some really experimental choices.
Yeah.
And very satisfying creatively to work on that project.
I agree. That's probably been, in terms of projects we've been paid for,
yeah,
I would say it would have to be that. Although I do wish we had a little bit more time on that.
Yeah, it wasn't perfect, but definitely my most favorite.
Yeah, for sure. And then the positivity. Rephrase the question again? Not rephrase it, restate it.
What do you appreciate most about having the other person as a business partner?
I'll start.
Okay.
I think you've definitely pushed the part that I'd say is the most important thing I've learned over the past 2 years of starting a business, is the thing about making it your own and making it stand out. I feel like I've gotten that from you. You have to add that element, and it ties back to what we were just talking about in the previous question of like, I'll edit something and I'll know it works, but I'll also not be that excited about it.
You have that moment where you're like, but it has to be like this.
Not necessarily. I'm just kind of like content with it.
Oh, okay.
And then I'll show it to you, and I'll know exactly what your reaction is going to be.
Yeah.
And I often don't want to show it to you because of that.
Yeah.
And you'll say like, couldn't it be more something?
Yeah.
And I agree, but it's hard to do.
Yeah.
That's a lot of work. it's like there's no clear answer. It's not like, oh, add this and this and then it'll be your own. It's like it's a huge process to try and do that.
Yeah.
It's not something that exists or something that you can just take and apply. It's different for every project. And so it's there's that moment of like, am I going to do anything about it or not? And so much more often now, I do that. So that's what I appreciate.
Appreciate your appreciation.
I appreciate that you appreciate it.
Appreciate the appreciation back. I think there's a lot of things about you off the top of my head. I think the optimism is very much appreciated in my life. I think I'm a bit of a catastrophic thinker, and I think in some ways we balance each other nicely in that way. I think editing wise, I think I've learned a lot from you in terms of story, sort of overall in a project, looking at it from a wider perspective, being very clear on like why we're doing something. I think my tendency is just to go, oh, it's my gut feeling, it feels good. And that works sometimes, but it's also failed me in the past, right? Where I hadn't thought about something enough and I was just going on gut feeling. And because I didn't put that intellectual, logical kind of force it to go through that system, there were issues with it or something, right? And I think from you, I've really, in the same way, you know, not being lazy to be like, why are we showing this image here? Why are we, which can be a little bit tiring at times, but also like make sure that it's like, oh, it's not random, you know, figure out why you think that's a good gut feeling, and try to explain it, I think is a very good skill to have in anything, because it also forces, you know, when a client then is like, oh, I don't know about this. And I feel like before I would have gotten a lot of times like, but it just feels right to me. Now I would go, yeah,
but
here's
this is,
these
and then
the
it builds
18
up for this,
reasons.
and
I
then
actually wrote an essay for you.
Yeah.
Get back to me tomorrow. Yeah, I think those things have benefited us a lot. And the certain, with the optimism comes a confidence, like with The Office. You know, I was really nervous about that.
Yeah.
And then it definitely helped that you were like, oh, let's just fucking do it. Like there's no reason not to do it. We have to do it at some point. And I think that is very helpful to have in those situations. If we had another person like me, I think it would just take a little bit longer to get things done. Yeah. And fuck you.
That's a nice last question. I feel great now.